Hello my friend, welcome to the channel. In today's code block, I'm going to work on the unpartial project again. Since the last code block, I make some change to the project so that it does not depend on Lodash, the default function or the merge function anymore. However, I recently found out that as I'm using it, I want to use it in a way that it allows me to recursively merge the objects together, and which means I probably need to use the Lodash merge functions again. However, I'm not going to add it back to the original unpartial function because in TypeScript, the partial type only applies one level. So it makes sense that the unpartial function also do the merge in one level deep. So instead, I will create a new function to support this feature. Let's get started. So to begin, I will be creating the same test case because all the same basic test case applies to this new function. So I'm going to copy this file, the test file, and rename it to a new test file, which we'll call unpartial recursively. Okay, and then we will be doing the unpartial recursively function, although it's a little bit long, but I think it's a better name. It is clearly state what it does compared to, say, in Lodash, the merge function is will do this automatically, but the name doesn't suggest it. So I want to make this clear. To do that, it's okay to get it from index. However, originally I have the function unpartial placed directly in the index.ts because it is a very small project. But now I will be putting it out to its own file to give way to having new functions. So in the index, I will be export everything from unpartial. Okay, and then unpartial doing this, and then this spec file, I will also rename it to unpartial. And then it's okay to get from index, actually, because I haven't coded yet, but I want to make sure the functions, all the tests still running fine. So I will start the watch without including the new file I just created. So hopefully this will work fine. Yes, there's no export member, of course, because we have not write it yet. So that's okay. Unpartial. So now let's create that. Well, instead of writing it, I think, because my guess is all we need to do is just go back and reuse the Lodash. So I'm going to install it again using the merge. Merge equals to require Lodash merge. Okay, and I forgot if the typing of Lodash merge exists. I think it does. So let's see if it has it. Yes, I think it does. So this will just return merge. No, in this case, I need to put an object, empty object in front so that I won't modify the super base. And the same here. Just type it. Sometimes copy and paste is not as fast as you just go ahead and type that function. So I can select and do a refresh, but I don't know if it will. No, actually I think it's fine. I'm thinking with it change the other function, but it shouldn't. So let's do this, export this function, that's fine, and then we're going to export that. There is some typo. Okay, so now this is not complaining. And then let's run the test again. I would expect it pass. Yes, it all does. So we just copy, basically just copy the function, the original and partial, and put it recursively, and then we use the merge function from Lodash, which is one of the what I use in the previous version. So that's why I know that it works. So now let's work on the case that I want to do. So let's start writing the test. And the test, we can describe it as will merge in object. So to do that, the interface that we have, this is not sufficient because there's nothing to be merged in here. And although I can extend it, but it is better for me to just create another interface. Deep config. So this is a required field with A, which is an object, and then we can say B is a number, and then C is an optional. Let's spice it up a little bit. So would that be sufficient? I think that's okay. That's good enough. So let's do that. So let's create the actual value would be unpartial recursively of a deep config. A deep config of, well, we need to provide a basic one which have A and B as 1. Well, okay, B as 1. Okay, so and then another object. So the partial object we have is we want to have the required field, it has it, the A, it has it, but instead of having the B, I wanted to do it like this, right? Since it is a deep merge case, you know, what I really want here is a recursive partial, and currently, if I recall correctly, TypeScript doesn't allow you to do that. We don't have a recursive partial config available yet. So, however, this is one of the use case. Oh, I know. What we can do is put this over here. And then just put it as any right now. And we want to say that the equal actual would be, what do we expect? Require A, B is 1, and C is see. So it seems like that is working. And of course, I get ahead of myself by just implementing it before I have the test. So let me undo that so I can see it's actually fail. Oh, undo too much. Oh, because that is okay. So let me comment this out, replace, put the original code back in, return super base, base, and partial. And here, oh, yeah, I was wondering why it gave me an error. Return base and partial, like that. And I expect it to fail. Yes, it does fail. As you can see, it's missing the B because the whole object A got replaced instead of merged. So as we use the Lodash, switch it back to this, remove it, then it will pass. Okay, so that seems to be working. And right now the only thing left is about this. As you can see in the test code, I have to cast this to any in order for it to work, because if not, it just doesn't work because of the internal type doesn't match. And since what I envision the use case of this is some information passed by the customer or in the, well, I mean the consumer. So the information I really cannot guarantee it will follow the shape. Of course, in that case, it also means that the object, the type of the object that pass in will be of type any or of some, even if it pass in with the strong type, there's no guarantee that the that information is actually correct, or it actually have that shape restricted by the type, because it's all runtime, right? Because as you read from the config file, everything goes. You were just casting it to like this, right? Casting it to the interface that you want, but that's fake, right? That's not really type safety. Right? It will still blow up at runtime. It doesn't help anything. So because of that, for this function, I will have to loosen this. So then basically make this an optional, and it can be just anything. Well, maybe anything would be too loose, right? I want to be at least it's an object, right? Because the primitive number string doesn't make sense in this case. So I want to at least constrain it to objects to make it a little bit nicer. So we will do that and do the same thing over here. One question though, do I want to have this, right? If I make it optional, that means the customer, or well, why I'm saying customer today, the user, the consumer will able to call this function with just one argument, and essentially that's just a cast, right? That's not really useful, and we do expect the user to pass in something. So instead of putting it like that, let's change this back and keep this as a object or undefined. Although on TypeScript I actually raised this question that for undefined, can we just skip that skip that parameters. I can add the link below if you are interested, and that issue is related to generics when using some generic code, and you can go there and take a look at it yourself. But in the time being, let's keep this as is, like this, while when so let's go back here. Then we can see that there's a bunch of error over here now. Now we can accept undefined, but can we accept no? And I can do the same thing to loosen it up, but do I want to be? So after some thought, I think I would just leave it as is, because this is really just for edge case purpose, and you should really not using the null. I'm not feel like adding the null type in there just to to pass all these tests. So let's run it again. So all the tests is fine, and I think we are good to go. So that's it for today's video, and hope you enjoyed it. And for the issue I mentioned, it is this one, and if you want, you can look at it again. I will add this to the link below, and you can just click on it and look for it in detail. So we'll see you next time.